Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It is Drew here, and we have some pretty insane rumors coming out of Texas, specifically Dallas, with Six Flags Over Texas rumored to be bought off by Herschend Family Entertainment. So this news is actually coming from a Trevor E. from Texas Thrill Seekers, and apparently he is quite reliable when it comes to Six Flags news. So this is pretty promising, but make sure to take this with a grain of salt. And he has stated that the purchase of 3 different Six Flags parks, including Six Flags Over Texas, by the minority owners and Herschend Family Entertainment for $5 billion is being discussed at the Six Flags corporate level right now. And he also states that the buyout could be completed as early as 2021, just in time for the park's 60th anniversary. And if you did not know, Herschend Family Entertainment owns Silver Dollar City over in Branson, Missouri, as well as Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So these are 2 highly themed parks, mostly relating to the Old West or the frontier, but they are both praised for their elaborate theming, as well as great thrill rides and even better experiences all around. Now, we do know that Over Texas is one of the 3 Six Flags parks that is rumored to be bought off. Six Flags Over Texas was actually the first Six Flags park, if you did not know. So this would be kind of crazy to think that the first park to start this giant chain of regional amusement would be bought up by a different company fully. Now, technically, it is not owned or operated by the original Six Flags Corporation anymore. There has been many different purchases within the Six Flags chain, and each park kind of has a different layout of who manages or owns the park. But the Six Flags Corporation has changed many times, with different companies buying out the Six Flags company as a whole. Now, a buddy of mine did some digging to see what other parks could potentially be bought out by Herschend Entertainment, and he found that there were 2 other parks, as well as Six Flags Over Texas, that are locked into financial obligations that they would have to pay until 2027 and 2028, creating a huge financial burden on these 3 different parks. Now, the first park, of course, is Six Flags Over Texas, but the second one might surprise you, and that is Six Flags Over Georgia, located near Atlanta. That has been gaining tons of improvements every single year, especially with Twisted Cyclone this past year, which was their new RMC. And the third and final park that is under this financial turbulation is Six Flags Whitewater, Atlanta. So this is actually a separate water park about 30 minutes north of Six Flags Over Georgia that is in this same financial troubles as the other 2 major land parks, Six Flags Over Texas and Six Flags Over Georgia. But the Six Flags chain does technically call Whitewater a separate entity because there is a Hurricane Harbor attached to Six Flags Over Georgia. So technically, Six Flags has 2 separate water parks in that state within a 30-minute drive of each other. Now, let's talk about the $5 billion offered. I think this is a crazy price to be paying for 3 parks. The only reason I could see it being $5 billion is if it would also pay off those financial burdens that those parks now hold. But I'm sure Six Flags corporate will take this offer into a huge consideration, because $5 billion is a massive amount that they could really benefit from, and potentially even go buy more parks that don't have these burdens that could potentially stop their growth of the park's economy in the future. Now, one thing I have to mention is I've never been to a Herschend family park ever. I would love to go to Silver Dollar City and Dollywood. All I hear is amazing things about the 2 parks, with how they're run, how they're operated, what rides they're getting. They have always been talked about more than any specific Six Flags park to me, and more than most Cedar Fair parks to me. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever heard a complaint about either park besides the fact that Wild Eagle is not crazy enough, and that's just coming from the OBC guys, of course. But I really want to visit both of these parks because all I have heard is amazing things. Now, if they can spread that amazingness to these two Six Flags parks, and of course Six Flags Whitewater, it would be fantastic, in my opinion, to see these parks thrive and be completely reborn in an amazing new way. Now, I always hear about Six Flags Over Texas and Over Georgia being the quintessential Six Flags parks. Operations kind of poor, lots of advertisements everywhere, and the park not being the best kept. Now, I have not been to either of these parks as well, and I would love to be able to visit both of them in the near future. But from what I've heard from so many different people, and what I can conclude from the things I've heard, is that these parks would be a lot better off if they were owned and operated by Herschend Family Entertainment. The theming level would definitely rise, as well as a lot more quality would be put into the parks themselves, I would think. But it also helps that they only have 2 parks to own and operate as of now, besides, of course, Wild Adventures down in southern Georgia, right near the border of Florida. And if you didn't know, they actually own and operate Wild Adventures as well. But let's look at this from a map perspective. Now, Silver Dollar City and Six Flags Over Texas are actually quite a ways away from each other. They're a good 7-hour drive or so apart, which I don't know if the parks would do anything with that. I'm sure they could offer a joint pass, but it's definitely a huge distance for most travelers for parks, I would say, and especially for locals. Like, no one in Southern California buys their Six Flags pass specifically for Six Flags Discovery Kingdom as well. Actually, most people that go to Magic Mountain don't even know Discovery Kingdom exists. So I don't think they do any joint options with that. I think it is too far away. But speaking of Dollywood and Six Flags Over Georgia, that's only a 4-hour drive, which they could potentially use to offer a joint ticket or a joint pass. We do know that Kings Island and Cedar Point actually share a joint ticket system where you can buy 1 day for Kings Island and 1 day at Cedar Point within a day of each other, and those are about a 3.5-hour drive or so apart. So I could definitely see that being a great place for that opportunity. But Wild Adventures is about the same distance away, maybe even a little farther from Six Flags Over Georgia. So I don't know if they do the same there. But I'm very interested to see how this all pans out. And this technically could take until 2021 at the minimum. So don't expect this to be a change that happens immediately within the next year or so. We've got at least 2 years to see what happens with this rumor. And do remember, it is still a rumor. It is not completely confirmed. And I probably won't say it's confirmed until the Six Flags company actually says anything about it, or the Herschend Family Entertainment company says anything about it. But I'm really interested to know what you guys are thinking about this. Do you think it would be a good idea? Would you like this change of pace in the theme park and amusement park industry? Also, what do you think Six Flags would do with that $5 billion? Do you think Six Flags could potentially go back to buying the SeaWorld chain like they were rumored to do back in November of last year? Because that acquisition would be less than $5 billion. Now, of course, there's a lot of legal hurdles with that, specifically with the animals, but definitely let me know what you think is going to happen in the next couple years. I think this is going to be a game changer for sure, though, because throwing around $5 billion should not be taken lightly at any time. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you have not. And of course, as always, we'll see you on the next ride.